So before we start, I would like to let you know this webinar is being recorded. So we will send you the recording after the webinar. And you can submit your question anytime using the Q&A function. All the questions will be answered at the end of the session. And we prepared a survey. So please help to complete the exit survey at the end of the webinar. Okay. I would like to introduce myself a little bit. My name is Kanka, also services specialist in Cambridge University's press, and I have 5 years experience in training and consulting in the area of open access journal marketing and management. So I'm currently focusing on supporting authors to improve their chances at publishing in top-tier journals, focusing on Asia. Okay, that's basically it's me. So we'll go through 2 main parts. First part will be peer review, and the second part will be open access. So as we all know, Cambridge University Press is the world's oldest publisher, founded in 1534, and we published our first book in 1584. And Cambridge University Press is an arm of the University of Cambridge, which is a leading research and education institution in the world. And we have offices in more than 50 countries, trading in over 200 countries. So what about our mission? Our mission is to unlock people's potential with the best learning and research solution. To achieve that, we have the syndicate. So the Press Syndicate is a governing body of the Cambridge University Press, and it consists of 18 senior members of the University of Cambridge. All the senior members oversee the press and assessment business. In detail, all the title of your books or the journal need their approval. They promised our high quality of the publications. And our academic authors come from all over the world. We had Sir Isaac Newton, Professor Stephen Hawking, and Noam Chomsky. And about our awards, we had all these kind of awards around the world, and we also have 170 plus Nobel Prize laureates in books, journals, and the journals of its partners. So that's basically the Cambridge University Press. Let's come back to the peer review. So about the peer review section, I will go through 4 main parts. So first, basic peer review process, and second, the role of peer reviewer, and third, ethics and best practice. And I will talk a little bit about how to respond to the revision in different situations. Okay, so let's start from a guide to peer review. Before we know more about the peer review, I would like to talk about the aims of peer review. So peer review decision will not be made by CUP. So peer review allows you to be evaluated and commented upon by independent expert. And during the process, it ensures your research is accurate and correct. And thirdly, about the feedback, the peer review process can provide constructive feedback and alert you to errors. And in this process, you can create a connection and a conversation around research. And also about the suitability, the peer review process is aimed to highlight if it is suitable for the journal. And in the end, discoverability, peer review process alerts you to new research in your area. And when we have some ideas about the aims of peer review, I would like to introduce three main types of peer review. So first, single blind. Single blind means authors doesn't know who the peer reviewers are, but the reviewers know who the authors are. And it's quite a common type among science journals. And the second type, double blind. Double blind means authors and the peer reviewers don't know each other. It's quite a common type among social science and the humanities journals. And the third type, open, that means authors and reviewers know each other very well and know each other's name, identities. And we have a really rare type called triple blind. What is triple blind? That means authors, reviewers, and even the journal editor, they don't know each other's identities. And here is a special case, special situation called post-publication peer review. So in some models, particularly experimental open access publishers, the manuscripts are reviewed after they have been published. So in this case, these reviews are most often open. And after we've known so many knowledge about peer review, let's go through the peer review process. So when you finish your journal article, you submit it to the journal, and your manuscript to go to the journal editor, and they will give your decision. So in this stage, you might receive two different decisions. First, rejected. The second, sent to peer review. So why do we receive the desk rejection? There are two main reasons. The first and the really common reason is out of scope of the journal. And the second is language issues. So those two are the two main reasons we receive desk rejection. And except that, the manuscript will go to the peer review process, and the reviewer gave decisions to the journal editor. The editor assess reviews and may send to the authors to make revisions, or they can give decisions about accept or reject. When authors finish their revision, all the materials go back to the journal editor, and if it is necessary, editors will go back to the peer reviewer again and receive the decision, go back to the authors, or just give the decision. So that's a general process. It could be really complicated and would be different between in every submission time. So I would like to introduce more about this part, also make revisions and the outcomes of peer review. So there would be three main different decisions, different outcomes. First, accept. That means the reviewer gave accept and you don't need to change anything. And the second, revise and resubmit. There would be two different decisions, minor revision or major revisions. And the third, reject paper with all the comments. So for the minor revision, it could be because you need language editing, or new citations, or mentioning additional topics or tweaks to interpretation of results. For the major revision, in those situations, you might receive the major revision. For example, the significant reorganization of text, or you need to do more experiments, or arguments needs to take into account a whole new topic, or the existing analyzed data or evidence has some problem. So that's the three different decisions or outcomes of peer review. And then Here are some differences between journals you may want to know. So first, the system use might be editorial manager or scholar one. Second, it could be different editors who take different roles in the process. For example, an associate editor who manages review and recommends the decision. So this is the first one, as a first editor. And another editor, a section editor who has overseen and approve the decision. That could be two different editors. And also the role of in-house journal staff could be different. And also the number of reviewers required. Minimum we need 2 reviewers, but some journals or in some situations there would be more. And the next, expected seniority of the reviewers. It really depends on the journal or disciplines. And the next, expectation of what reviewers should look for. Again, it really depends on the journal. And in the end, who knows who during the peer review? As we've talked earlier in the previous slide, based on different peer review type, it would be different. For example, single blind, authors don't know who the reviewers are, but the reviewers know the identities of the authors. So these are the differences between journals. And now let's go through the second part, the role of peer reviewer. So when you've submitted some manuscripts and you have manuscripts published, you might think to be a referee or reviewer. So why to be a referee? First, contribute to the advancement of the community or the knowledge. And also, it could help you familiarize yourself with the peer review process. And in this case, it can some kind of improve your writing in the future. And third, be up to date with the latest emerging topics and upcoming researchers in your field. That could be also very useful for your career. And the final one, be recognized for your expertise by your department and peers. People will know you. And when you decided to be a peer reviewer, you might receive the invitations from journals. So when you receive that, before you accept invitations, what do you need to think? What kind of things do you need to consider? So first, expertise. Do I have the domain knowledge or training or experience to review the article? If it is out of my expertise. And second, conflict of interest. So do I know the author personally? If yes, decline or reject the invitation. And third, this is also very important, time. Can I commit the time required to complete and write the effective review? If I don't have time, if I'm really busy during the next few months, I can just say, I'm sorry, I don't have time. And about the conflict of interest, I would like to talk more about that. So what is a conflict of interest and how do we declare it? So conflict of interest is anything that could compromise your ability to assess the manuscript fairly and objectively, even if you believe your review would not be affected by it. So in those situations, you need to declare or just say you have conflict of interest and let the journal editor know. And the first, institutional or collaborative relationships, that's quite common. You were worked together, you even published the same manuscript earlier. And the second, personal relationships, like family members, friends. And third, financial interest, for example, if reviewing a grant application. And the fourth, the paper conflicts your own public statements or position. The next, disclosure issues, for example, the related to patents, funding, and in the end, have reviewed the manuscript for a preview journal. Well, this one is, I can't say this common, but we really met that before. The manuscript sent to the journal A, and the journal editor sent it to the professor, and professor reviewed. In the end, the manuscript has been rejected. So the authors revise and submit to the journal B. And because the professor is really the expert and really senior and really doing good, excellent research. So the journal B sent this manuscript to this professor again. So in this situation, the professor has to say that I have reviewed the manuscript for journal A, and I'm sorry, I have to decline your invitation. So remember this, declaring a conflict doesn't necessarily mean you cannot review that. So raise any potential conflict of interest with the journal editor, and the journal editor will help you. They will assess the situation. So what you need to is just declare the conflict of interest. Okay. So when you accept that, accept the invitation before you start review, you can go to the journal's website. There will be peer review guidelines. If you cannot find, you can go to the journal editor and ask them to send the guide to you. So when you have the guide, you can start your review process. So during the process, here are 3 different tips. First, template and questions. So follow the template or questions supplied by the journal editor. If there's no template or no questions, you can just go to the journal editor to ask, what do they need you to comment on? What's the main point? And the second, anonymity. So ensure that you do not include any details that can allow the authors to identify you. If that is single blind, double blind, or even triple blind, if that's an open peer review, that would be okay for you to, yeah. And in the end, length. So there are usually suggested lengths for different journals. So follow the suggested lengths. Sometimes they will let you know no more than some number of words, or sometimes they would let you know no more than some pages. And now you start to write your paper, your report. So when you're writing the report, here are also 4 tips. So first, sources. Do include a list of additional sources for authors to read or cite at the end or in the report. So when you feel like you can recommend some additional sources to the authors, don't hesitate to recommend them. And the second, decision, which is really important, because the journal editor really relies on your decision as a peer reviewer. So inform the journal editor what's your decision. Accept or revise and resubmit or reject. Let them know your decision. Yeah. And third person voice. It's pretty much like when you're writing the manuscript, try to use third person voice rather than first person, because first person voice sounds like too personal and not that convinced. And third, in the end, editors decide ultimately what is published. So even if we are peer reviewer, we can give decisions, we can provide our comments and suggestions. Journal editor or the handling editor is the one who makes the final decision. So remember the 4 steps. Okay, So let's go through the third part, ethics and best practice. Okay. So here is a thing called Committee on Publication Ethics, COPE. So Cambridge University Press is a member of the Committee on Publication Ethics, what we call COPE. So the COPE is a forum for editors of peer-reviewed journals to discuss issues related to the integrity of the scientific record. So you can see people will submit some cases to the COPE and receive those kind of verdict. Here are 4 real-life cases I would like to share. So the first one, author requests the permission to publish review comments received. And the verdict, denied. Why? Because the reviewers were told that the process was confidential at time of carrying out review. Okay, so they cannot be published because that's confidential. And the second, also of rejected paper publicly names and criticize peer reviewer. Well, this could be a big issue, and the verdict classified as a mistake by author, and the author apologized publicly to the reviewer. So if you really disagree with the idea of the peer reviewer, you don't have to do that. You can either submit appeal if that's a final rejection, if you receive the rejection from the journal, or just respond to the peer reviewer. I will go to details about this part. And the third case, publication of the manuscript on an external website after acceptance, but prior to journal publication. Well, this is not allowed, so the verdict classified as a mistake by author who removed the manuscript from external website. So, so after acceptance, there could be some other process to go through. So this is now the end of your submission, and also there could be so many permission or copyright issue related to this kind of activity. And the fourth one, author sends gift to editor of journal while manuscript is being reviewed. The editor, worried about conflict of interest, returns a gift. Ooh. And that's a real life cases. So here are some tips, more about the ethical issue and also responsibilities. So the first, duplicate submission. So we've been asked that earlier. For authors, you have to confirm work in the submitted manuscript has not been submitted elsewhere. If you do want to submit to another journal, make sure you withdraw from the first journal. And the second, plagiarism or inadequate citing. So ensure that all work in a submitted manuscript is original, which is very important, and that your acknowledged content reproduced from other sources. Yeah, otherwise it could be identified as plagiarism and could influence your future career. And the third one, non-disclosure of conflict of interest. Well, authors need to and have to declare any potential conflict of interest. And the next, significant error in publication. Well, as a author, we have to notify the publisher if a significant error in publication is identified. This could influence the future generation of future students, the new researchers to do their research. So yeah, that's also his responsibility. And the next, not conforming to national, local, or institutional laws and requirements. So if you're doing life science, yeah, you might be really familiar with this, because studies involving human or animal subjects should conform to national, local, and institutional laws and requirements. So you must be very familiar with the ethical code. And the next, copyright issue. So authors have to obtain permission to reproduce content such as image, maps, figures, or musical examples. So these are some ethical issue knowledge. Yeah, and let's go through this fourth part and really detailed about how to respond to revisions. So when you are responding to revisions, it's actually an opportunity to refine and improve your manuscript, and try to discuss those comments that you don't agree with. And when you are doing the summarize main changes in responding to review cover letter. So how to write the cover letter? Usually you can make that to three main parts. First part, thank editor and reviewers. As it could be your first paragraph or first part. And the second part, summarize main changes. And the final part, usually one paragraph and politely. So that's the three main parts. And follow the cover letter, put the detailed response here, and make sure the response covers issues point by point and refers to line numbers and address comments in sequential order. So here are some examples. First, let's talk about if you disagree with the comments. So even if you disagree with the comments, I would suggest to you responding objectively and professionally, and supporting your argument with consensus and logical evidence. If you really disagree with the comments, still consider revising the article in some way and try to clarify your argument, or otherwise avoid some similar response from your readers. It's also a good chance for you to improve your manuscript. At the end, provide a detailed list of change made. We can see the example at the bottom. So here is an example. The author wrote, I appreciate the reviewers' comments and suggestions. They are very helpful. Let me respond point by point to the issue they raise. So for the first referee, and then put the kind of the line number, page 1, paragraph 3. I can see that this statement is indeed a little ambiguous, and I have now made the point more clear. So tell the referee where it is, the location, and let them know what you've done. The same here, page 2, paragraph 2. I've referred to the work mentioned by the reviewers and added a reference. Yeah. And it's very common for papers to be rejected. I guess 40% of paper are rejected after the peer review. So how to handle the rejection? I would suggest to you taking the opportunity to improve your paper, because if you receive the rejection after peer review, you will receive the comments from the peer reviewer and even the journal editor. So establish why your article was rejected, consider making changes recommended by referees, and find another super journal to submit that again. Okay, here are some recommendations about the publication. So we offer general recommendation services cooperated partnered with AJE. Here is a website, and you can also scan the QR code to access our website. And also we provide editing and translation service. And if you need that service, you can go through this website. And we also have some Chinese service. Yeah, here are some independent organizations. This is COPE we talked about, and problems you may use as a peer reviewer. And I've also put some useful resources here for good overview of process type of peer review. And again, some useful resources. Okay, so that's for the peer review part. And let's go through the open access publishing with Cambridge. So if we want to know more about open access publishing with Cambridge, I think we should have a look at what we publish. So Cambridge University Press publish a wide range of high quality academic content across Cambridge core, like 400 plus journals and 33,000 ebooks. Yeah, we publish like leading journals, research monographs, reference works, and textbooks. So based on our data, open access globally in numbers, here are some evidence. So 36% of scholarly content was OA in 2020. Well, we think based on the data, there will be 47% of scholarly content be OA in 2023. Yeah, this year. And personally, I think it could be even more. And if you go to the yearly growth, 16% OA growth yearly from 2017 to 2020, while only 1% non-OA growth yearly during the same time. So seems like open access is a new trend in the scholar content. So how many types do we have in Cambridge University Press? First, Diamond OA. Diamond OA is kind of special because these are typically funded by a society or funded, so there's no author payment required, but the content is still freely available. So you don't have to pay for APC and you don't have to pay for subscription. But it needs to go through the peer review process. And fully good OA, this is a very common OA type. Require authors to pay APC. Well, no subscription fee. That means it will not be hidden behind the paywall, so access freely. And also we have hybrid journal. That means we have, you can publish OA. When you publish OA, the journal will charge APC. Well, you can also publish subscription mode. In that mode, there's no APC, but you need to pay for reading. And in non-OA, yeah, this is a traditional subscription type. And all the different types of journals all go through the peer review process. That's something we have to follow. That's rules, requirements in this discipline. And talking about open access at Cambridge, we have 70 Go OA journals and 300 plus hybrid journal. And the percentage of open access journals is growing every year. And here are some journals, some open access journals in Cambridge University Press. So some of them are transformed from the subscription, but some of them, like this one, Global Mental Health, this journal is born as open access. Okay, so because we have to pay for the APC mostly if we publish Gold OA, so what about the pathways to publication? So first, the cost of publishing open access are typically met through an article processing that is paid by author or author's funded body or institution. However, your APC might be waived or discounted if you're in the transformative agreement. So Cambridge University Press partnered with over 2,000 institutions across the world to help you publish open access. That means you may publish OA at no cost. You can check with your institutions if you've signed with Cambridge, if we have agreements. And if you don't have the transformative agreement and you choose to publish OA, you will be asked to pay for an APC after the article is accepted. However, we also have discretionary waivers. That means it will be available, it could be available in Gold OA journals. You can check the information page or contact the editorial team. Like if you're in the Research for Life list, you might receive some discount or even waiver. So here are some tips for how to publish OA in a hybrid journal. If you want to publish OA in a Gold OA journal, that's quite straightforward. Just follow the process. You won't have like the second choice. You just go through the process and the article published. But in the hybrid journal, the key stage is to choosing OA upon the acceptance, after the acceptance. So you need to select the Gold OA option in your lessoning agreement and choose Creative Commons lessons. So yeah, you prepare manuscript, submit that, and make the decision, and then go to the APC transition, publish the article. And yeah, we've talked a little bit about the transformative agreements. So what is that? So this cooperation institutions location all around the world. And agreements in Asia, we have agreements with a number of institutions in China, in mainland China, in Hong Kong, Taiwan, Japan, South Korea, and Singapore. You can check your eligibility here from this website. And after that, you can publish your research article or OA in over 400 CUP journals and benefit from broader dissemination. And yeah, do authors gain an advantage by publishing Gold OA? As we've talked a little bit about that, I would like to make it more clear. Benefits of open access are very much. First, more downloads, and second, higher citations, and the third, wider range, because OA articles are freely download, so readers don't have to pay. That means even the readers from some low-income countries, they can read your paper and they can even cite your paper. So OA articles are downloaded 3 times more than non-OA articles on average, and cited 30 to 50% more than non-OA articles. And it's freely available online globally. So that's allow anyone anywhere to find, read, and benefit from the research. Even they are not scholar, they are not researcher, they are just ordinary people. They can use this, they can read your paper. So here are some evidence. The blue bar for non-OA downloads and the yellow bar for OA downloads. Averages 3 times more than the non-OA. And again, the citations. OA citations for OA articles more than the non-OA articles. Yeah, the evidence of an OA advantage is mounting across all disciplines and substantial in scale, prolonged over time, and the material in respect to impact. So yeah, there might be some questions from the authors, even we've talked about that. So let's have a look at the OA myths. So first, there's no benefit to me. As we've talked earlier, because that's freely available online and not hiding behind a paywall, so more downloads, more citations, that will be helpful for your future work. And the second, open access means low quality. We've showed the slide. I guess you still remember the different types of OA journals. All the journals or books go through the same peer review and publication process. So it's just a different mode, doesn't mean it's different process. And the third one, open access is too expensive for me. So you can check if your institution has agreements with Cambridge University Press. Even if not, if you really need some support, you can check with the journal. Journals may also waive OA fees if you're really unable to pay. So we hope fees won't be a problem for everyone. Yeah, that's the end of this webinar. And if you have any questions, you can ask. Okay. Let me have a look at these questions. Thank you for allowing me to hear webinar. I need to attend. Okay. Thank you for part 1 webinar. I was wondering if I could get the PPT materials later after. Yes, we will send the recording and the PDF version to you after the webinar. Yeah. Do you have any questions? Please feel free to type in the question box. If there's no questions, please help to scan the QR code to complete the feedback survey. And thank you very much. Have a good day.